There is a silent need that few recognize, yet it invisibly shapes the quality of each day. Most people wake up and, without noticing, are already being pulled outside of themselves. Notifications, expectations, pressures. The external chaos imposes itself before we can even remember who we are. The morning, which could be a sacred space for inner alignment, transforms, without resistance, into a battlefield where, almost always, we lose before we even fight. And so we continue, day after day, shaped by the demands of others, by the noise of the world, by an anxiety we did not ask for, but nonetheless accept. When, in truth, what we seek, as hidden as it is essential, is precisely the opposite. An intimate, solid, silent space where our mind can fortify itself before exposing itself to the brutality of daily life. Not starting the day being shaped by the world, but shaping ourselves to face it. The most common and also the most invisible mistake is underestimating the power of the day's first thoughts. Allowing them to be random, impulsive, anxious is like allowing an intruder to settle within us, determining the tone, the rhythm, and the quality of everything that will come after. Orienting oneself by reason, clarity, and serenity upon waking is not a philosophical luxury, but an act of emotional self-defense. Marcus Aurelius understood this as few did. He wrote to himself every morning, silent reminders of how he should guide his soul, even as an emperor, even while ruling an empire. He knew that before confronting external chaos, it was necessary to align the internal one. Epictetus, likewise, taught that true freedom begins in choosing what to think, even before choosing what to do. The mind is the first and last bastion of our freedom. This video is an invitation to that silent ritual. From now on, you will have 9 Stoic reminders to be repeated each morning, not as empty mantras, but as solid anchors, silent shields, invisible forces that will protect your peace and strengthen your mind against the inevitable pressures of existence. Because the resilient mind does not arise by chance, but through the deliberate practice of caring for what, after all, is the only thing we truly possess. And now, take a deep breath. And remember this Stoic principle to start your day with clarity and strength. There is a hidden suffering born from a silent expectation that the world will cooperate with our well-being, that people will act as we would like, that life will be, at least today, kinder than it has been so far. But this expectation, as human as it is illusory, weakens us more than it prepares us. Marcus Aurelius, with the sobriety of one who knew the human soul, said, "People will act according to their nature. Do not expect them to act according to yours." Those who anticipate frustrations do not become cynical nor cold, but serene. It is no surprise to encounter resistance, ingratitude, or ignorance throughout the day. This should not be interpreted as a personal attack, but as part of the inevitable landscape of existence. Serenity is born from accepting that the world does not organize itself for our comfort, but for its own dynamics, indifferent to what we expect from it. Upon waking, remembering this is an act of profound maturity. It is putting on, still in bed, an invisible armor that does not harden, but protects. It is preparing oneself like the traveler who, before leaving home, puts on a coat, not because he wants the rain, but because he knows it may come. And when it falls, he does not curse the sky. He simply continues on his way, protected, conscious, serene. This reminder, when repeated every morning, transforms the way we walk through the world. It ceases to be a battlefield and becomes familiar ground, where, despite difficulties, we walk firm, silent, unshakable. Because it is not the world that shakes us, but the naive expectation that it should be different from what it is. And remember, there is another principle even more liberating. It is so common, almost instinctive, to believe that our happiness, our peace, and our balance depend on what happens to us, on external circumstances, on the choices of others, on the chances that completely escape our control. But this belief silently transforms us into hostages of what we can never govern. Epictetus, with the clarity that only the wise possess, reminds us, "It is not things that disturb men, but the judgments they make about them." It is not the event itself, but our interpretation, our judgment, our emotional response that determines whether we will be disturbed or remain serene. True freedom does not lie in doing what we want when we want, but in choosing how to respond to what we do not want. In the face of any event, whether joyful or painful, there is a space between stimulus and reaction. It is within this space that our freedom, our dignity, our strength reside. Asking oneself before each fact, "How can I respond to this with excellence?" is an exercise of inner autonomy. Like a mirror that does not choose who reflects in it, but remains clear and unchanged, so too can we choose to be the serene surface where the world reflects, but which is never confused with it. Repeating this reminder every morning is a call not to hand over the key to your own peace to the world, but to always keep it in your hands. Because, in the end, what depends on us is always and only our response. And that is enough to build a lucid, resilient, and serene life. Now, take a deep breath again. There is yet another essential truth. There is an almost unconscious tendency to live as if time were infinite, as if the days were guaranteed, as if there were always a tomorrow to do what we postpone today. This emotional blockage anesthetizes the urgency to live with truth, with intensity, with focus on what truly matters. Seneca, with the precision of one who understood the human soul, stated, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." There is a silent contradiction that leads us to negligence. We fear death, but we live as if it did not exist. We avoid thinking about it, but in doing so, we also avoid the clarity about the brevity of life. To remember upon waking that this may be the last day does not paralyze, does not depress, does not despair. On the contrary, it purifies. It purifies our choices, filters out the excesses, puts into perspective what is essential and what is mere distraction. Each day ceases to be a hollow routine and becomes a silent rehearsal for the inevitable end, and therefore an irreplaceable opportunity to be and to do what truly matters. Like the sculptor who chisels every detail of the work, knowing that time is limited, so too can we shape each choice with the care of one who knows there are no guarantees of repeating the gesture tomorrow. Repeating this reminder every morning is to recall that finiteness is not a curse, but a blessing that gives meaning, direction, and depth to existence. And that, by living with this awareness, we are already, in a certain way, preparing not to die, but to live fully. And, stay with me, the next principle strengthens this vision of inner freedom even more. We live surrounded by things, roles, titles, and relationships that silently feed the illusion of possession. We believe that we have, that we control, that we guarantee. But life, with its relentless wisdom, reminds us, sooner or later, that everything can be lost: status, possessions, reputations, even beloved people. Nothing, absolutely nothing external, truly belongs to us. Epictetus expressed this with the precision of one who not only knew but lived this truth. You are an actor in a role you did not choose. Play it well. We did not choose our body, our family, the time, or the context in which we were born. We do not determine the script, but we can choose how to act within it. And the only territory where this choice is absolute is in the mind. Only our inner disposition is invulnerable. Only the character, the decision, and the peace we cultivate within ourselves cannot be taken away, cannot be violated, cannot be destroyed, unless we ourselves abandon them. Everything else is transient, subject to the fluctuations of fortune and time. Before leaving home, to affirm to oneself, "My character, my decision, my peace, they are only mine," is an act of profound lucidity and autonomy. Like the sailor who, even without controlling the sea, can always control the helm, so too can we navigate life's storms with the certainty that inner direction never depends on the wind, but on the firmness with which we hold the rudder. This reminder, repeated every morning, returns us to what is essential, to what no one can take away: the ability to choose how to think, how to feel, how to act. And in recalling this, we transform the mind not just into a shelter, but into the true fortress of our freedom. And now, breathe again. Let's move on to the next essential principle. It is natural, almost inevitable, to seek pleasure and avoid pain. From the most primitive instincts to the most sophisticated choices, we are often led by this binary, immediate logic. But Stoic philosophy invites us to transcend this emotional prison, to realize that one who acts only in search of what is pleasurable or in flight from what is painful is not free, but a slave to their own impulses. Marcus Aurelius, with the lucidity of one who led men and armies, yet did not allow himself to be led by blind passions, taught, "What befits a human being? Reason." It is not pleasure that should be the criterion for our choices, nor pain the limit of our actions, but reason, that which ponders, evaluates, and seeks the greater good, not mere momentary relief. To seek only what is comfortable is a path that silently distances us from excellence, from virtue, from the greatness of character. Reason, on the contrary, calls us to act in accordance with what is right, even if it is uncomfortable, even if it requires sacrifice, even if it hurts. To ask oneself when making a decision, "Is this rational or merely comfortable?" is an exercise in lucidity and strength. Like the pilot who chooses the safest route, not the most pleasant one, So too does the one who chooses to be guided by reason build a life that is more stable, more coherent, more integral. Repeating this reminder every morning is a silent invitation not to be moved by the immediacy of emotions, but by the serenity of reflection. And by doing this, we not only become freer, but also stronger, wiser, and, above all, more faithful to our true rational nature. And now, shall we continue? Ready for another principle that reinforces your inner freedom? There is a seductive illusion that permeates the contemporary imagination. The idea that freedom is doing everything one wants, giving in to every impulse, satisfying every desire as soon as it arises. But paradoxically, it is precisely this uncritical and immediate surrender that most imprisons us. One who is dragged by desires, who cannot restrain them, is not free but a slave to oneself. Epictetus, with the authority of one who lived as a slave and yet conquered the deepest freedom, affirmed, "Who is free? The one who masters himself." True freedom does not lie in satisfying every desire, but in being able to refuse them when they do not serve our integrity, our purpose, our greater good. Every conscious renunciation is an act of strengthening. Each time we say no to the desire that weakens us, we become more masters of ourselves. Conversely, each unconscious surrender makes us fragile, disperses us, transforms us into puppets of fleeting impulses that arise and disappear with the same speed. When desiring something intensely, to pause and ask, "Does this serve me or enslave me?" is a gesture of rare lucidity. Like the rider who, by holding the reins, keeps the course firm, while the one who lets go is taken where they do not want to go. So too does one who masters their own desires govern their own life with firmness and dignity. Repeating this reminder every morning is a silent commitment to true freedom, the kind that is not defined by the absence of limits, but by the conscious presence of choices that elevate, strengthen, and lead to inner excellence. Now, breathe, and let's move on to another essential principle of strength and serenity. There is a silent misconception that pervades our daily experience, the belief that events inherently carry a specific meaning, a charge of good or evil that automatically affects us, without leaving us any choice. But the Stoics teach us that this is a powerful illusion. It is not the facts that determine our emotions, but the interpretation we give them. Marcus Aurelius said with serene clarity, "Things do not touch the soul. It is the soul that judges them." It is not the event itself that disturbs or elevates us, but the judgment we pass upon it. Life, in its essence, is neutral, silent, indifferent to our desires and fears. We are the ones who paint its colors, who assign its weight, who decide what each experience represents. The power to assign meaning is the key to emotional freedom. In the face of a setback, I can see it as a tragedy or as an opportunity for strengthening. In the face of a loss, I can mourn eternally or recognize the invitation to detachment and maturity. Everything depends on the silent choice I make in the intimacy of my mind. To ask oneself, before any event, "How can I interpret this in a way that strengthens me?" is an exercise in autonomy, responsibility, and courage. Like the artist who transforms raw marble into a masterpiece, so too can we transform the raw matter of life into an expression of beauty, virtue, and resilience. Repeating this reminder every morning is an act of inner sovereignty. It is to assume that although we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can always decide what it will mean for us. And within that choice lies not only our freedom, but also our greatness. And now, breathe, ready for the next principle that will further expand your emotional strength. We often attribute to the external world, to the words of others, to events, to external judgments, the power to harm us, as if pain came from outside, as if suffering were imposed, inevitable, uncontrollable. But Epictetus invites us to look at this belief with greater clarity and to realize that the true source of our pain is not outside, but within us. He said with precision, "If someone insults you, know that it is your opinion that hurts you, not the insult. It is not the words or actions of others that shake us, but the way we interpret them, the way we welcome them, the way we allow them to penetrate our soul. The insult only wounds when we transform it into an injury, when we give it the power to define who we are. Whoever understands this becomes little by little invulnerable to verbal aggression, to unfounded criticism, to the attempts of others to belittle. They perceive that the other always reveals more about themselves than about us, and that reacting to everything said or done against us is surrendering control of our serenity to the instability of others. In the face of criticism, to ask, does this define me, or does it reveal more about the one who says it, is an exercise in emotional strength and dignity. Like the rock that is not shaken when the sea strikes it, for its solidity does not depend on the waves, so too does the one anchored in their own conscience remain firm even before the most intense attacks. Repeating this reminder every morning is a commitment to emotional autonomy. It is choosing not to be a hostage of external opinions, but to build an inner fortress so solid that no word, no look, no external gesture can destroy it. Because true strength is not about avoiding confrontation, but about being unshakable in what is essential, one's own peace. Now, breathe, and continue to the final principle that will consolidate your Stoic discipline. We often deceive ourselves by believing that excellence is a destination, a state to be reached someday after much effort, as if it were a trophy to be displayed, or a definitive mark that will set us apart from others. But Stoic philosophy dismantles this illusion, revealing that excellence is not an endpoint, but a silent and continuous path, woven daily into each choice, each action, each thought. Marcus Aurelius expressed this truth with a disarming simplicity. Perfection of character is to live each day as if it were your last. It is not about waiting for an ideal moment in the future to be virtuous, but about deciding today, now, to live with the utmost integrity and presence as one who understands that time does not accumulate, it only passes. Excellence is not built in great occasional feats, but in small, constant practices, silent, often invisible to the eyes of the world. It is not about impressing, but about improving oneself, not for others, but for oneself, with the serenity of one who knows that value lies in the process, not in the applause. Upon waking, affirm, "Today I will do a little better than yesterday, even if no one sees." It is an act of humility and strength, like the artisan who day after day refines their craft, knowing they will never be finished, but still realizing there is no path more worthy than this, to become each morning a more refined version of oneself. Repeating this reminder every morning is an invitation to patience, to persistence, and to a silent commitment to self-improvement. Because true excellence is not proclaimed nor flaunted. It is simply practiced every day until it becomes effortlessly and quietly who we are. Now breathe. And let us conclude with the final reflection that consolidates all these reminders into a daily Stoic practice. These 9 reminders are not magical formulas, nor empty promises of a day without conflicts or a life without pain. They are silent anchors, subtle and powerful instruments that sustain the mind amidst the inevitable uncertainties and challenges that each day brings. They were not created to prevent the storm, but to prepare the navigator. Marcus Aurelius is the final symbol of this ritual, an emperor who, even enveloped in wars, betrayals, and immeasurable pressures, wrote for himself, not for others. He wrote to remain steadfast amidst political and existential storms, to remind himself each morning that inner peace does not depend on external chaos, but on the clarity with which one steers their own soul. Epictetus reinforces this vision, a man who, even deprived of physical freedom, lived his entire life as a constant practice of inner fortitude. He needed no external guarantees, nor titles, nor possessions to be free. It was enough for him to cultivate daily the silent discipline of one who knows there is only one territory worth governing, the mind itself. This is the invitation. Upon waking, before picking up your phone, before opening the window, before letting the world invade your consciousness, begin with these reminders. Because it is in the first choice of the day that your resilience begins to be built or lost. The first word you direct to yourself is the foundation upon which everything else will either stand or collapse. Like the warrior who, before the battle, silently sharpens his sword, so too do you, each morning, sharpen your mind, strengthen your soul, prepare yourself to face with dignity and serenity the day that begins. Do not expect it to be easy, nor to be fair. Simply be ready. And in being ready, discover that true victory is not in conquering the world, but in remaining whole, lucid, and serene while the world unfolds. Now, breathe, and carry this silence as your invisible armor. If this message strengthened you, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Transform yourself silently and simply be.